Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of College Football UK brought to you by the A Sleep at Work Network. I am your host, Fletch, and as always, I am joined by Sam and Nick. How are we, gents?
Good.
All good.
Lovely. Gary will be joining us soon. He's just stuck in meetings at work. He'll join us once he's done. We are now on to week 12 of the 2025 college football season, and there is so much to talk about. And today, we're going to back at some of the chaos that went down on Saturday, the second edition of the playoff bracket, and what you should be looking out for in a packed week 12. There is playoff seedings, there is bowl eligibility, there is conference championship berths, and everything means something right now. Before we get into it, don't forget to follow us in the AAW network on the socials and join our free to join Discord server where you can watch games with us at the weekend. You can find all the relevant links and information in the description of this episode. If you are on YouTube, they are below these lads' gorgeous faces. And if you are on audio only platforms, then you can get them within the app that you are using. Right, let's get straight into it. Nick, well, it's over to Nick's news.
Okay. A little bit of news from last week from the show that I missed. Good show, by the way, boys. LSU continue to clear house following on from their dismissal of head coach Brian Kelly and offensive coordinator Joe Sloan. Last week, they kicked out the athletic director Scott Woodward. He was let go. Now, that relates to the Brian Kelly lawsuit that is going on at the moment. Now, I want to quote this because I don't want to get it wrong. Brian Kelly is now suing LSU because apparently LSU are saying they haven't formally terminated his contract and therefore he's not entitled to his buyout or his payout of $54 million. Now, the person that supposedly sacked him was Scott Woodward, who's now no longer with LSU. So LSU has taken the position that they have not formally terminated Kelly. They are saying that they are seeking to fire Kelly for cause that is not related to on-field performance, yet it was his on-field performance that was referenced by Scott Woodward as the reason why he was sacked 2 weeks ago. Because, again, this is going to have to go through the courts and what have you else, but Kelly's lawyers and legal team are seeking a declaratory judgment confirming that LSU's termination is without cause and therefore related to his performance. Meanwhile, LSU are trying to find some cause for sacking him and everything that's going on in the background. So this is not going away quietly. This is not, we'll come to a deal about how we're going to pay you and when we're going to pay you. This is going to get messy. So I don't know much else because I haven't gone through and looked at all the legal stuff that's been filed. But I would just say it's going to be a long and tedious process of before Brian Kelly finds out. And
Yeah.
chances are he's back here. Chances are he's back coaching and has a job somewhere before it even gets sorted.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what
So
the
go, Sam.
thing that I've got is just it says Coach Kelly's representatives informed LSU that Coach Kelly disagreed with each of LSU's new positions, including the idea that he somehow had not been terminated, that the then athletics director Woodward was not acting with authority
Yeah.
in a meeting attended by several LSU athletics officials, including the current athletics director Osprey, and that there were any grounds for termination with cause, or that LSU could manufacture any such grounds after his termination, thus necessitating this action. So that's what the filing states in terms of the three areas. I think overall it's a massive mess, and it's something that LSU desperately do not need right now. They
No,
don't need
Yeah.
to be, with all the stuff that's going on the field. They don't need this going off,
but
happening off the field.
But also, we looked at last week, we looked at the various different coaching positions available. All you are doing right now is making yourself look less and less and less attractive to the top level of coaches who don't want to go in and deal with this mess. You might have a good program, you might be a well-established team within the SEC, but you are still at this point in time not an attractive prospect to go to as a head coach. So it's just one of the things I saw. It's like it's so obvious that LSU were just trying to duck out of paying him $54 million.
Yeah.
Like it's let's call the spade a spade. That's clearly what they're doing. They're trying to get out of it. Um, I saw that LSU told Coach Kelly's representatives that Scott Woodward did not have the authority to terminate Coach Kelly and or make settlement offers. So basically, anything that had been put forward to him anyway
Yeah.
was null and void, didn't count, nothing happened. And obviously the settlement being, well, if they owe him $54 million, I think Coach Kelly wanted out. I think you're looking at if they're offering, say, right, we'll pay you 30 million instead, he's saying, right, well, I want more of it up front, and I want you to waive my, if I go get another job somewhere else, there's none of this. You only supplement what was left. If I get less, basically let me go. He can then go and double dip. And clearly,
But
like they're finding the way to get out of it.
the thing for me is, when has an athletic director never had any power to sack somebody? I'm sorry, but to turn around and say that our former athletic director, when he was in charge, did not have the authority to sack somebody. Come on. I mean, stop being ridiculous. Anyway,
The problem that I find with it, though, especially, is that this could then have a knock-on effect to prospective college recruits not wanting to go there, because it's not just about the head coach, it's not just about obviously that. You then start dealing with the issues around that in terms of, well, if I'm a kid about to go into college and we don't even, there's all this issue with his money not being paid, what happens when I go in there and that? So I think this could have an even bigger impact than just on the ability to pick head coach. I think this could potentially put off a lot of people wanting to go to LSU in the first place.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's clearly just a mess. It's not an attractive place to be with a
Mm.
load of mess happening, and it's things that should be. I get sometimes you're gonna want to try and negotiate something. You're not gonna want to pay someone $54 million for doing a shit job at your school and all that stuff. But these are things that like that admin based things that are really you should be just following a process and it's a simple. But they've somehow made an absolute pig's ear of it. I don't.
I mean, they shouldn't have offered it. They shouldn't have offered him the money in the first place if they didn't think that at some point, they would have risk assessed the fact that they're going to potentially lose a big chunk of money. Like, make sense of it. They've
Yeah,
only got themselves to blame at the end of the day. They shouldn't have offered him that contract.
yeah. Moving on to more news, because I know we want to stick to
yeah,
time. Right. Bill Belichick has said he's focused on the Wake Forest game this Saturday, and that's amid the availability of the head coaching position at New York Giants, a place where he won 2 Super Bowls previously. I don't think any team in the NFL really wants Belichick. I think his time in the NFL, I get he wants to reach Don Shula's record. I don't think he's going to get the chance. If anything, Andy Reid's probably going to be the one to break it. I'd be very surprised if the Giants go for Bill Belichick. That being said, to say he's focused on the Wake Forest game does not say he's not interested in the position. Sticking with
yeah.
money and paying, the NCAA is seeking political help regarding NIL deals and the management of money and stemming the flow. The man they've gone to the man at the top, good old Trumpy Trump, and he was on Pat McAfee this week to say that a free market would see college football implode, and Trump himself is looking into applying a limit, an artificial limit, as to what players, but not coaches, can earn. So it's all right for coaches to take millions and millions and millions, but players can't.
Here goes.
Um,
This
so,
this is the basis of the whole fucking problem we had in the first place.
so
Sorry,
it's all right, yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. It's the tap's been turned on. NIL money is flowing. I don't know whether you can turn the tap off. It, you know, you might be able to stem the flow, but that's it. And finally, for anyone who was watching college football at the weekend, USC pulled a trick play out of the bag, um, and it got them in hot water. In the second quarter, with the score at 7-7 against Northwestern, they executed a fake punt. Their punter was not number 80 Sam Johnson, but was number 80 Sam Heward, their third string QB, who threw a pass to the outside, and one of their players received the ball and got it the yardage they needed. Now, subsequently, the Big Ten have come out and said USC should have been given a 15-yard penalty for unfair tactics, which apparently is a rule. But what USC have said is that they changed Sam Heward's number on the roster weeks ago and nobody noticed. Now, there are many instances of multiple players having the same number on a team,
yeah.
but usually you'll have a number 80 on defense and a number 80 on offense. It doesn't tend to be a QB and a punter. It doesn't tend, because special teams players can play either sides of the ball. So it doesn't tend to be like that. But yeah, they changed Sam Heward's number a few weeks ago. Nobody noticed. The head coach of USC made a remark about it's a good job you guys don't follow us on Twitter, because apparently they announced the number change on Twitter. Nobody noticed, and they ran a trick play with it. So good old USC.
I mean,
Can't beat Notre Dame, but hey.
I don't have an issue with that. At the end of the day, it's not like they like stuck a random jersey on him and it was the number 80 and did it that way. Fair
Yeah,
enough, I'd understand that. But the fact that they'd obviously planned to do this way in advance and had it as a trick shot in their back pocket, I've no issue with that. Because at the end of the day, they've not done an illegal play. There's no illegal formation or anything. It's we see it in the NFL all the time. Just the difference is that
yeah.
the QB doesn't have the same number as the punter. But people should have been paying more attention to who was coming on the pitch.
I'm just saying I can't find this tweet. I've just had a quick look and I've done like the search through someone's profile for a word and search about 4 different words there. None of them have turned up. So maybe they deleted the tweet now.
Possibly. That was the
Maybe
state. That was
maybe
the
maybe
statement that the coach said.
maybe they deleted it when they knew they were going to use the play, just in case.
Possibly.
um,
It's not like they pulled a Russ Tyler Greg Goldberg out of Mighty Ducks 2 and just changed the kit of the player and
Yeah.
just to beat the Icelanders.
so is that Nick's news wrapped up, or is there anything else you want to?
That is Nick's news. That's it. That's everything. I'm going to turn over to Sam's supplement because I know Sam's egging to get a piece of news in that I didn't have, and I'll leave it there.
Yeah, well, it just constantly at the moment looks like I'm trying to suck up to Fletch at the moment because this news is actually
I
pleasing
enjoy
him
it.
massively. So Michigan State University have been placed on a 3 years of probation for violations that occurred under the Mel Tucker tenure as coach. The violations occurred due to the participation of 3 ineligible players, and the Spartans will now vacate all 14 wins from the past 3 seasons, including the 5 wins last season that they got under Jonathan Smith's first year as head coach. The 3 players who were ineligible are no longer with the program, and Michigan State has been penalized $30,000 plus 1.5% of the football program's budget. The budget for 2024 was approximately 58.6 million. So that would mean, if it's based on those figures, they would have had to have paid around $880,000 on top of the $30,000 penalty that they already got. The Spartans will also face restrictions on official and unofficial visits, recruiting communications, recruiting person days, and off-campus recruiting contacts and evaluations over the probationary period. So basically, instead of getting the slap on the wrist that Michigan got, they've basically been belt whipped for what has happened.
BTA.
Mm-hmm.
BTA. I did all my gloating, all my rips, all my everything off camera. I'm not going to bring them back up now. I'm going to be professional on this podcast and say, "Ah, that's sad for them. I'm so sorry." Have you got anything else there, Sam, in the supplement?
No,
Nope.
it was just that.
Okay, so Fletch's forum has had a couple of pieces. Someone logged in this week, started posting again. The NCAA are to pay $303 million to settle a class action lawsuit, an antitrust class action lawsuit that represented 7,700 volunteer coaches over a good couple of decades. The, the lawsuit claimed wage fixing and collusion that basically said the NCAA had agreed to let a load of schools keep one person on as a volunteer coach, and they wouldn't let them receive any benefits, anything for being part of it. So they've been done for that one. The NCAA settled $303 million. There was a similar class action lawsuit brought against them a couple of years ago into 2022 even by baseball coaches and reached a settlement of $49.25 million. The NCAA right now with the House NCAA versus House lawsuit, with this class action lawsuit, with the baseball one. Now, bear in mind, the House versus NCAA, they split a lot of the cost of the nearly $3 billion payout with the conferences and schools that then had to start paying out. The NCAA are paying nearly $2 billion right now in lawsuit because of lawsuits they faced over the past 2-3 years. $2 billion that they are paying out right now. The other piece of information I had was we won't really talk about it during the thing because it was an FCS game, but Grambling State versus Bethune-Cookman, 2 teams that we are, funnily enough, quite familiar with this on this podcast, had a brawl on Saturday. It got chippy throughout the game. I've watched some of the highlights. It was getting chippy. The DBs, little hits, knocks, pushes, things were being said, little argy-bargies throughout the game. It spilled over into halftime. And I'm not quite sure whether it was to start the third quarter or whether it was just in the third quarter. There was a brawl. 9 players were rejected from the game. 27 players have been issued suspensions, and I believe it's 5 of which they've got a 2-game suspension. It was chaos, absolute chaos. And look, we've seen argy-bargies, we've seen teams go at it a little bit. I've never quite seen anything like this in a long, long time. The best video I saw, though, the best part of the whole thing was watching one video where there was a mother in the background who just shouted and said, "My son better not be out there. My son better not be out there." And you hear it in the voice. It's not like I hope he's okay and not getting hit. It's a whole if he throws one punch, I'm throwing 10 at him when he gets home later. Um, it was quite
Who were the who were the teams?
Grambling State and
Blame and
Bethune Cookman.
Bethune Cookman.
Right,
Um,
okay. I'll
Grambling
have to
State
look at that later.
Grambling State have been issued a $40,000 fine. Bethune Cookman have been issued a $25,000 fine. The only quote, again, a lot of the information is muggy about it, and a lot of the clips are like a minute long, so you've got to piece a lot of things together. And I'm not fucking some detective, so I can't do that. But it was just pure chaos, pure crazy, and it was arguably quite hilarious to watch, if I'm perfectly honest with you. Um, but that's my news. That's all I've got this week. So I know we're still waiting on Gary, but I want us to. We're going to start off by looking at Saturday. There was a lot that happened. We're going to try over the next few weeks to not really just dwell on Match of the Dead, but there's too much happened. Um, Four games I particularly want to focus on. I know everyone's got a talking point. I've hooked us all up. So if we start off with Oregon and Iowa. So Oregon barely scraped past an Iowa Hawkeyes team who we're ranked in the college football playoff rankings last week. Sam, like Oregon had to go on a monster of a final drive to seal this game off.
Yeah, I think the interesting part of this is kind of falls with what happened just before it because they were in a good position in the game um before this happened, and Iowa went up and got a touchdown to make it 15-16. And then Iowa went for a 2-point conversion, which they almost managed to get. His foot, sort of back end of his foot, landed in on the right side of the grass, but it slid, and as he planted his foot, went into the white, and then he slid through. The actual, if you watch it, it looks like he's about to snap his leg in half, or his ankle or his knee was something was going to go because it looked awful. So it went 15-18. Obviously, Iowa then kicked off, and Oregon had started on. If I get this right, I've got to make sure I've got the right one. So Oregon started on their own 3-yard line, and within that there was 6 plays, what, 8 plays, and they managed to get within field goal range. There was, I think it was a lot of these were sort of very short passes, were very short runs, and then they managed to get Benson to get a 24-yard pass, and that was what kind of helped them get over the other side of the field. And eventually they managed to kick a 39-yard field goal slightly on the left-hand side, which he kicked through fairly straight. And then with 3 seconds to play, they kicked the game off again, and Iowa fumbled the ball. So it meant that they couldn't even return it, which was a shame. But yeah, very sort of dramatic end to a game that you would have thought Oregon would have been a little bit more comfortable with. But yeah, a fun, interesting game. And like I say, Iowa put it to Oregon and kept themselves in the game and nearly went on to win it. And I think if had they made that 2-point conversion, we would have had overtime and they could have won it in there. So just shows you the fine margins for those teams when they're trying to beat the best.
Yeah. Um, I had Nick, did you get any of this game in?
I did. I watched a little bit of it, but I was still on recovery mode from the Indiana game because because the Indiana game happened before the Oregon game,
Yeah.
and it was just amazing. I saw the end of the Oregon game. I'll be honest. I saw probably the last 4 minutes of the last quarter, because for the rest of the time I was just busy watching the Indiana game and watching other things, and so yeah, I caught the last sort of 4 minutes of the quarter of the Oregon game, and it's like Sam said, that last drive, you know. Oregon knew they had to do something. They were in last chance saloon, and you
Yeah.
know
And that let's not pretend like let's not be beat around the bush in the fact that Oregon they're in the playoff spots, but you do the whole quality wins and all that sort of stuff, and that loss could have really derailed them and put him in a bad position.
they
Mm.
might not have even been able to qualify if they lost that. If results had gone their results had gone against them that week, or certainly this coming week, they may not have been able to recover from that. So,
Mm.
but that's why as you get to the end, as you get to the end of the season, it all becomes very tight, and a lot. We look at it last year. You look at it last year. The NIU defeat that Notre Dame suffered in week two. You can get away with something like that in week two, because then they went on a 10-game run. But if
Yeah,
they'd gone on a, say, 6-game run, then lost to NIU, and then gone on another 5-game run, that might not have been enough. So it's, when your losses come in the season is also a bit of a big contribution as to what happens. But Oregon didn't have any wiggle room, and
no,
they certainly pulled it out of the bag when they needed to.
yeah. Um, but like I say, speaking of final drives that get you out of a big, big world of trouble, Indiana did it first. Oregon tried to do the whole anything you can do, I can do better. Weren't quite as good
Well,
though,
I
was
was
it?
going to say, I see your Oregon game, Sam, and I raise you the Indiana game because,
Yeah,
oh
this
my,
this game was insane as well. Or just the,
I
the whole game was good, and then the
yeah.
final drive is just insane.
I mean, I text on our group chat and I said, you guys need to be watching this, because no one had said anything in the chat, so I was like, I can't be the only one just watching this, but yeah, I mean, that is a Heisman Trophy drive, if ever.
Mm.
I'm sorry, but if there was ever a doubt that that man was not going to win the Heisman, he deserves to now.
Yeah.
So, you know, um, I mean, it was amazing. Um, they come onto the field with 151 left, and they went uh, 10 plays, 80 yards, and in 1 minute and 15 seconds, and it was amazing to see. I mean, the catch itself, catch of the season probably.
Yeah.
His toes are in by a millimeter,
And
and
it's
you
it's
can
it's
see.
the fact that his foot was hovering and it could have easily planted. That
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was his right foot that could have planted, and he somehow managed to keep it elevated whilst he planted his right foot. It was just the whole thing was just mental.
but you can see as soon as the ball is in that catching position, as soon as the line judge who's right there, as soon as he can see that the ball is going to be caught, he's straight away looking down at the feet.
Mm.
Because if the guy drops it, fine, it doesn't matter. Right now, he's on all about where his feet come down, and there was no doubt that he came down in the thing, and he called it a touchdown, and it's like, oh man, you know. But he Mendoza really had to move them up the pitch quickly, and
Well,
fair play to him, because that was that was a drive and a half, a drive for the ages, if you like.
this is it's. I think I get what you're saying when it comes down to the Heisman, but also I'm just gonna I'm just gonna be devil's advocate here for 1 second. Heisman contenders don't throw almost game losing picks to need to go on a game winning drive against Penn State, who haven't got a conference win yet in week 11. Devil's advocate for that there.
It's that's it's what people remember though.
Yeah,
It's all right.
people
It's all
remember the
right, me. Yeah, we can sit here. We can sit here, and you can play devil's advocate, and you can say, "Well, he did this, and he did this, and it wasn't very good." But people don't remember that. People remember that last drive. People see those highlights on YouTube, and that's what people remember.
people
If you
remember
if
the fact that he started that drive with a 7 yard sack and still
yeah,
managed to get a game winning drive. Bearing in mind, look at all the times that, you know, what's one of the things that we look at with the NFL in terms of great players? Matt Stafford, the amount of game winning drives he's done, they don't talk about the fact that he's had a multitude of interceptions throughout his career and things like that. It's all about those memories and those memorable moments. And if it doesn't matter what you do in the game, if you can produce winning moments, and that's
I
what
mean,
Mendoza did in that game.
Matt Stafford's actually quite a good example because if you said I'm not a Detroit Lions fan, so the majority of Matt Stafford's career was there. I mean, I know he's with your Rams now, so but when I, as somebody who doesn't support the teams that Matt Stafford's associated with, when someone says to me, "What do you remember about Matt Stafford?" I remember the play against, I think it was Cleveland, where he's injured and he's got one arm, he's dying on his
Dislocated shoulder,
ass,
yeah.
and had Cleveland not called that timeout, he wouldn't have been able to be in. But because they called a timeout, he was able to come back on and he threw a touchdown with a dislocated shoulder with only one arm. I mean, literally, he's holding it in its socket, and it's like that's what you remember. That's what I remember about Matt Stafford. So, in essence, that's the sort of point you remember those moments. I don't remember all the times that a Detroit Lions fan. Oh God, not again! No, oh God, not again! You don't remember those. It's the moments. It's the highlights. They're what you remember. And Fernando Mendoza's drive at the end will be what everyone remembers from that game and the catch.
Right. Okay. Um, it is cool though. Like if you look at that drive, he went 5 of 8, 22-yard pass, 12-yard pass, 29 yards, 17 yards, and then obviously the game winner was 7 yards. But actually, when you really think about it, it's 17 because you've got the full length of the end zone within that. It's an impressive drive. I'm not trying to take away from the fact that the drive was a great drive. And I like the whole we talk about it a lot. We spoke about it on Hurdle the Line, Sam will attest to, like, teams that find good teams find the way to win it. You're gonna come up against one of those games. Like, it's gonna
Yeah.
happen. You're gonna be up against it. You can't blow out 12 games a season. It's impossible. And sometimes those games are just banana skin games. The best players find the way out of it. The best players know when to dig deep. And there is just something about Fernando Mendoza after he throws an interception. Like, if I am an Indiana fan, I'm begging him to throw an interception because all of a sudden he turns into prime Peyton Manning. Straight after he's prime Peyton Manning, and it's just brilliant. So yeah, it is
I think
chaos.
one thing I wanted to mention about that Indiana game is that's probably the best that I've seen Penn State play all year,
Yeah,
which is
they were.
concerning about obviously what we know about Penn State, but it's good to see that they are semi turning a corner. I know it was ended up with a loss, but for the the sheer awful plays that we've seen over the last few weeks, for them to start to look like they're starting to turn a corner. I mean, I know a lot of these players are probably just playing for their careers at the end of the day. A lot of them are playing because they know that they're going to be going into the draft next year. But they actually put up a good fight, and it's something that we've not really seen from Penn State for a while now. So it's good from their perspective. Yes, you lost that game, but you can say that you kind of took them to the limit and actually looked more like the old Penn State than
I
the
mean,
shite that we've seen recently.
he looked all right against Villanova, Sam. You're not giving him enough credit, eh? He looked good against
I mean,
Villanova.
they went into the half, what, 17-7 down, and you're like, oh, it's just another Penn State poor performance, and they come out and they start scoring and they get the game back into, where was that heart, where was that desire, where was that drive to win a game when James Franklin was in charge?
Mm,
Because it's the same players, it's the same, with the exception of Franklin, it's the same staff. Where was that heart? Where was that desire at the beginning of the season?
Well,
Because if
mm,
you'd seen that in every game, they wouldn't be where they are now.
well, this is the thing, and you actually look at they've only been blown out in what there's only one game they've played in and lost where it wasn't a one-score game, and that was Ohio State last week. Well, the week before. That was what, 38-14 in the end.
mhm.
The rest of the
Which is very
games
funny.
have been Oregon 6 point loss, UCLA 5 point loss, Northwestern 1 point, Iowa 1 point, and Indiana 3 points. Like it's 6, 5, that's 11, 12, 13, 16. Like,
But it's
what?
it's not the
Yeah.
fact that it's the fact that they're losing one score games to the teams that they're losing one score games to, and that's the more disappointing part of it. I think more than anything, it from the other side of it, it's the points they're giving up and the scores they're giving up. Like to give up 42 points against UCLA, that's for a
Yeah,
Penn
that's
State team, that's
embarrassing.
completely unacceptable. Um, and I think especially as over the last sort of year or so, I think Penn State have prided themselves on having a good defense, and it's gone a bit to shit this year. Um, but yeah, I think it was just worth mentioning. Obviously, we actually saw. I don't know. There was something about Penn State's game. I just thought they played a lot better than what I've seen previously.
Yeah. There was a couple more games that were really good this weekend. I think we're not going to we're gonna wait for, depending on what time Gary turns up, Gary can obviously mention it. Um, but I sat there and went and watched the number 8 ranked BYU head over to Texas Tech, face number 9 ranked Texas Tech, who played in their Patrick Mahomes Snow, whatever they're called, jerseys. They were not nice. I don't like them. Um, Texas Tech dominated 29-7 win. BYU special teams were pretty much for the first quarter and a bit, that was the problem. Both defenses were fantastic, and it was no point like Texas Tech were running away with it. At no point did you feel that there was one point where you felt the game had got too far away from BYU, but at no point did you really feel like, whoa, Texas Tech are just running away
They ran
because
they ran out of gas. BYU's defense ran out of gas because they were on the field so much. If you look at the drives, Texas Tech had Texas Tech had long time drives, whereas BYU were a lot of three and out, three and outs, and the defense were on the field a lot. And that BYU defense really stood up to Texas Tech, and they can be proud of what they did because they played really well. But they were just so gassed by the middle of the third period,
I mean,
middle of the third quarter. They just couldn't keep going at that rate.
Mm.
time of possession's pretty much even. BYU, in fact, had more time of possession, only just, but had more time of possession. Um, but it was the special teams, and it was early on. Like I get some of the you just when it's was it 19-0 going into the fourth quarter. You got to allow them a bit more time to get the ball going on the ground, but they didn't really. That offense, I just didn't see the offense ever really get going. Like I said, the special teams were the biggest problem for me though, because they had start the game off, we had a muff punt, or early on in the game they had a muffed punt, went about 19 yards. Okay, that drive that Texas Tech had resulted in a punt, but the BYU special teams fumbled the punt on the return. Well, so actually, it's not even on the return. He's not fair caught. He's had to run back about 10 yards, gone to catch it. It's hit his chest. It's rolled. Texas Tech recover. They get a touchdown out of that drive because they end up straight in the red zone. Then they miss a field goal a little bit later on a drive that started in the first, ended in the second quarter, that resulted in a field goal for Texas Tech, who have 10 points off poor special teams play that they let up. And that was all but three of the points in the first half that they gave up. It just wasn't great on special teams. They kind of figured it out towards the end, but and towards the end of the second quarter, but it just wasn't good. Backmeyer, I want to give a huge shout out to Backmeyer though, because when you talk about the defenses, Texas Tech D line was nasty. It was disgusting, and I have not seen. Actually, well, I have, and you see it a lot in college football. Like, it's been a while since I've really seen a good D line dominate a good team and a good O line in college football because, like, Blackmail constantly under pressure. The amount of, and do you know what, I'll give. This is where a big key of the game is. Like, chunk plays, big plays. BYU could not get them off. They couldn't, and definitely couldn't. They couldn't get going on the run game and get big plays in the run game. Definitely couldn't get it going in the passing game because by the time Backmeyer had dropped back, he's had someone in his face and he's having to throw into tight windows, into tight coverage all game. That Texas Tech D line was nasty. The pick that he had, like he threw it. I'm not quite sure on the decision. I just know that like as he's throwing it, he can feel the guy and then he spends a lot of the second half being worried because he knows pressure's on him at all times and constantly in a hurry and constantly trying to get it out and get it out quick. But
I
Texas
mean,
Tech defense was
credit where it's due as well. He only actually took one sack in that game
yeah
because I was watching a lot of that, and he was constantly just trying to get away. And then the amount of
yeah.
times he was just throwing it away or throwing it to like a 1 or 2 yard gain, it was just yeah.
He had 11 attempts on the ground in the game and only a couple of them would you even say were considered designed for him to be able to. The rest of them were
Mm.
scrambles and he was trying to get out and get away. Uh, so much. Um, the and like I say they just didn't get going on the ground at all. Cameron Dickey for Texas Tech. He had a good game, 121 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Their best rusher was LJ Martin, 35 yards on the ground off 10 attempts. That's the best that they could get going. It just it was not a Texas Tech, and it all started with the D line, getting him back by his face, getting in there early, disrupting his game, making him throw off balance, making him throw into tight windows, and making him have to get the ball off because then and the coverage was excellent for the most part. Um, and it really did look like uh, I surprisingly Patrick Mahomes was in the building and the team he was rooting for wasn't getting a load of calls going away. I was very surprised at that one. Um,
What are you trying to insinuate?
Nothing at all. The Yeah, it all actually all of this for me came down to the fact that just Texas Tech's defense is legit. That is a disgusting defense, and I want to see him in the playoffs because I want to see how this defense fares off against an SEC school or a Big Ten school because you that offense is is good. It's okay. But it all falls on the back of that D line getting in faces, that D line making quarterbacks play off game, play off balance, play out of the pocket, um, and really, really creating trouble. Yeah, creating trouble for him. And BYU ranked number 8, and they did not look like the better. They were obviously, but they just didn't look the better team at all on the day. Um, no Gary. Yeah, I don't know if his meeting's run over or what. The other game I wanted to just give a mention to was where have they gone? Where have they gone? Because I didn't get this up because I thought Gary was going to be here. Let me try this. Apologies, gents. Am I going crazy? Did Vanderbilt not play this week? Oh no, wait, no.
Yeah, they did.
Looking at the wrong week. Looking at week 11, week 12. Um, Frank, it's
They
because
beat they
you
beat
click.
Auburn.
No, I'm gonna say it's every time I click on something, if I click on a slightly different part of ESPN, it resets the whole of ESPN. It's bloody annoying. Vanderbilt beat Auburn in overtime, and they had to come back in the second half because they were 20-10 down at the end of the first half. They had to come back and then win it in overtime. Frustrating and just not what you'd come to expect. But again, much like Indiana, you've got to get tested at some point. Feels like they get tested a bit too much though, especially as far as the offense goes.
I remember I was trying to find that Vanderbilt game. There we go.
Yeah. But so while you're trying to do that, I've got some of this. I'm granted there's an extra, well, there's an overtime in it, but Diego Pavia went 25 of 33 for 377 yards and 3 touchdowns, uh, and also went for 112 yards on the ground. I didn't speak too highly of him in the Heisman candidate race. He's earned a lot of Heisman points off me there, putting the game on his back
Mm.
and doing what he did and doing that kind of thing. So.
And talking of players to keep an eye out for in this draft, Eli Stowers managed to get 122 yards from 15 targets, 12 receptions. Didn't get a touchdown, but again, we've seen a lot of positive, well, receiving tight ends be quite important to teams in the NFL. Obviously, with Trey McBride, Laporta, Brock Bowers all coming into the NFL fairly recently. I mean, we've seen Tyler Warren this year. Eli Stowers is going to be another one that I think is going to be someone that a team looks for to add firepower into their offense because he is the exact same style of play. And he was someone that I picked out at the start of the year from the tight ends selection.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So again, but with Gary not here, I don't want to focus too much on a game that none of us have particularly looked too much into. Sorry, guys, I feel like I'm calling Gary out here. I'm not. So we'll move on to the next topic. Now, I want us to play a little game called CFP Tears or CFP Tears. Now, look, like with English language, it's funny and it's funny, stupid. Um, Obviously we're spelling those two different ways. We've got tasers in levels and tasers in those on your face. Only gets funnier when I explain the joke. But what we're gonna do, I've asked the lads to provide 3 different teams a playoff lock, a playoff hunter, and a playoff miracle. Now it's gonna work a little bit like Shag, Marry, Kill. Murray is the team that's the lock. Shag is the team that's the hunter, and Kill is the team that needs a and it's pretty self-explanatory. But a lock is a team that, let's face it, lads, they're guaranteed a playoff spot. They're not coming out of the playoffs. That's not happening. They're in. We can all but call them punched in their ticket. A hunter is a team that has a very good chance of making it. Things need to go their way. There's still things they need to do, and there's still things that probably need to go their way. But a team that is hunting, they're right in that hunt. And finally, a miracle team. Now, this could be, and I've left this somewhat open to interpretation, so I'm interested to see what. But teams that need a miracle. Now, whether you consider it to be a team that still has some sort of a shot, insert clip from Dumb and Dumber of Lloyd saying, "So you're telling me there's a chance?" Up to
I
you
think there
guys.
has to be a I think there has to no. I think there has to be a chance for it to be a miracle. Otherwise, what's the point? You could just turn around and say, "Well, Old Dominion."
Michigan,
I reckon.
Michigan.
Michigan. I just think.
I
I
liked it
think
better
there
when Sam
has
was
to.
kissing my ass.
I think every team in the selection has to have an outside chat.
Yeah.
I don't think you can just select somebody that doesn't have a complete chance and then go, yeah, that's a miracle.
Auburn. Auburn have
Yeah.
a
So
chance.
I'm going to start off with Nick. Who is your lock? Who is your playoff lock this year?
Um. Well, I'm going to go with the current national champions, Ohio State, because even though they have one less win than Indiana, they're still top of the board. They have not been troubled at all year. They are going to make the playoff, barring a complete and utter disaster in their last few games. They are going to make the playoffs. I don't. They're too good to not make the playoffs. So I think my absolute lock is going to be Ohio State.
Okay, Sam, who's your lock?
My lock is, funnily enough, I'm gonna have to say is Indiana. I think that, you know, they've got the two games that they've got left to play are, I would say, are probably two of the easiest games that they'll have to play out of the teams that are left in that position. I think that, against Wisconsin and against Purdue, they shouldn't be losing any of those two games. So
Yeah.
they're going to be a team that I think they will be, 12-0.
Yeah.
Going into this season. I can't see them, and the way that, potentially Ohio are probably going to lose to Michigan in the final game, they'll end up being the number one team. So
Yeah, absolutely. They're barring any catastrophe, both of them. And I've gone, funnily enough, no one can. I did ask everyone to potentially provide a second one. No one's taken mine, so I'm going to go with Texas A&M. We'll do it 1, 2, 3. All of them are going in. Currently 9-0. Only option to miss out is to lose out. They've got 3 ranked wins against Notre Dame, LSU, and Mizzou. 5 games, 40, 5 games where they've won with 40 plus points. 8 games where they've scored 30 plus points. We've got South Carolina, Samford, an FCS team, and Texas may as well be an FCS team. Remaining, yeah, I'll fight back, Sam. Like worst case scenario, they go 10. They're not losing to Samford. We'll call them that a win. End of. Like we're just not playing about on that one. So the worst case scenario is 10-2. I don't see that happening. 11-1 is very much feasible with a loss on the road to Texas. But you're talking 11-1, 12-0. Either way, I think they're going to be in the championship game. You can't turn away an SEC team at 11-1, and that's their worst possible record. So, and the Texas game though could be a funny one because Texas might still be in the fighting for a playoff spot at that point. So that's gonna be a chippy game at home. Um, so yeah, they're my lock. Texas A&M, top three undefeated teams, all of us. Have. So I'm going to go with Sam now. You can start us off with your hunter. Who is your hunter?
I mean, I know that they have just been placed into the playoffs bracket this week, but for me, Texas are the hunting. They are the team that are hunting for me. We we need we've got two this next game. Obviously, we've got Georgia this week, and then we have Texas A&M. Those are the two big games. We're fortunate that our playoff potential is in our own hands. We've got to win out. I think. I don't. I think losing a game won't be good enough to get us in there. But I think if we can win out and beat, especially the fact that we could beat Georgia, who are already going to be in the playoffs or likely going to be in the playoffs, and Texas A&M, who are all but in the playoffs, I would say all but guaranteed. Those two wins would be enough to solidify us into it. We lose one of those two, I think that season's done. So to
Yeah.
me, if we lose both of them, then definitely it's done. But I think that we are in a position where we control our own destiny, so to speak. We control what's going to happen in our. We don't have to rely on. I don't think anyone else other than ourselves in winning games. So for me, we're very much a team that's going to be hunting.
Yeah. Nick, who are your hunters?
Um, I was going to select Texas Tech, um, but that seems a little too close to the almost guaranteed. So, um, in the same instance that Sam's just picked his Texas, I'm gonna stick my head on the block and pick my Notre Dame because the two defeats that we have first thing in the season, yes, they're to ranked teams. We both combined losses are by a total of 4 points. I think we lost the Miami game by 1 point and the Texas A&M game by 3 points. Notre Dame have had to go on a run of win, 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 and they still have to win out from here. So it is not guaranteed. And if they slip up just once, that's it, they're done. So they've got no wiggle room for mistakes. They've had their wiggle room. They've got to win out. They should win out. Their most difficult game is probably this weekend against Pitt. For me, it's one of the games of the week. Um, and I just think, yeah, I would. I'm confident enough that they are going to win out. So I'll say I'll say no today.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, if you didn't say Notre Dame, they were my hunter number two. Uh,
Right.
they were my backup just in case, just in case. Sam goes with his Texas. Nick goes with his Notre Dame. I'm going to stick my neck on the line and say, Sam, you stop kissing my ass. So I'm going to go after you and say my ones are Oklahoma.
I
Seven and
mean,
two.
I did just say that Michigan were going to beat Ohio.
You did. But it's too late now. You've already started slipping. 7 and 2, three ranked wins and a loss to.
Us.
Sorry, a loss to rank. One loss to the. I can't even bloody understand my own notes at this moment in time. The only losses are to a ranked team and a previously ranked team in Texas. The Texas loss didn't look good at the time, starting to look a little bit better now. The remaining three, they've got Alabama on the road, they've got Mizzou on the road, and they've got sorry, no, they've got Mizzou at home, LSU at home. A loss to Bama is probably expected, and we're going to be, I think, in that question of if they have a convincing win against Mizzou and a convincing win against LSU, you're going to have and they keep it close against Bama on the road. There was the question last year of whether Bama should have got in on 9-3 over SMU, right? Who were 10-2. I think we're going to have a similar conversation and a similar question of could a 9-3 SEC team make it in over a 10-2 team from another conference because the SEC is so much harder. Uh, um, a, a close-ish loss to Bama might have Oklahoma be the one in that discussion. Now, SMU got bounced last year as soon as they entered the playoffs. Was not pretty. It was not a good game. I'm worried that the College Football Playoff Committee might have learned from that mistake to an extent and put the SEC team in instead. But given that, I mean, a win against Bama and they are a lock the week after. I don't really care. They could have a loss to Texas, 9-3. They're almost a lock for me at that point. Even if they go, sorry, a loss to LSU, they're still a lock if they lose to Alabama, if they beat Alabama. Um, but yeah, I went against Bama. They were impossible to overlook. They were a lock. A close loss to Alabama. They will find themselves in that 9-3 discussion versus 10-2 from another conference, and I reckon they might actually they'll get the benefit of the doubt on it. Um. So finally, I'm gonna throw to everyone a miracle. Now it's only fair. Nick, you went first. Sam, you went first. I'll go first on this one. My miracle is Tennessee. Right? One, because I promised Mrs. Fletch I would mention him today, and two, because I wanted to choose a team that was in the top 25, and I still thought was a miracle despite somehow being in the top 25. 9-3, as I've just said, could potentially be enough to get an SEC team into the playoffs if the committee have learned from their mistake last year of getting SMU in there. Um, if they have a big 3 weeks, you also need multiple, and I don't mean like one or two teams, I mean you need at least 15 teams to have a bollocked up next couple of weeks for them to really stand a chance of being within that bracket. Multiple favors. They've got New Mexico State at home. They've got Florida on the road. If they stand there at 8-3 and then beat a potentially still ranked Vanderbilt in the last week of the season, again, this is the conversation will end up happening. Two of the three games are absolutely winnable. Vandy have shown themselves to be vulnerable, but like the Rowan Tennessee are 0-3 versus ranked opponents, so that doesn't really help. But the committee clearly see something in him to have him at 23. I'm interested to see where it goes from here. Big ask, but we'll see. Nick, who are your miracle team?
Um, any of the top four, five, six from the ACC? You've got you've got Georgia Tech 8-1, who are 5-1 in their conference. Virginia 8-2, 5-1 in the conference. Pitt, I talked about them when they were saying about Notre Dame. They're 7-2, 5-1 in the conference. SMU 7-3, 5-1 in the conference. And then you've got Duke 5-4, 4-1 in the conference. Louisville 4-2 in the conference at 7-2, and Miami 7-2 and 3-2 in the conference. Miami are ranked, Louisville are ranked, but yet Duke and SMU, who are above them in the conference, are not ranked, and then the top three are ranked. The ACC is going to go right down to the wire, and there is the possibility that someone like Louisville or Miami, because they're ranked, could make it through the championship, through the ACC championship game, if they win and the results go their way. I think it's probably fair to say I think Georgia Tech deserve a place, but I think there's so many teams in that ACC that they're all chasing the miracle that is qualification. So I would say any of the ACC teams that are fighting for position, because like I said, if Pitt can beat Notre Dame, well, God, I hope they don't. But if Pitt beat Notre Dame and they go on a run for the last few games of the season, they put themselves in prime position to be at least in the championship game, and then. But Virginia's defeat to Wake Forest at the weekend doesn't help either. So I mean, the ACC, it's wide open at the moment.
Yeah. Sam, who is praying right now?
So I went with a different view on this, and I was looking at like from a perspective of what would happen if they won all their games. What would they need from others to potentially be considered one of the teams that gets into the playoffs? And I went with it, and this might be a bit more, they may be considered a bit more hunters than not, but I went with Vanderbilt, and that was purely because my way of seeing it is there are one, two, three, four, five SEC teams above them right now, currently in the rankings, and Vanderbilt don't have to play any of those teams. And if all of those teams were to win, obviously I know that there's Alabama and um and Georgia and Texas and all that, they're going to be playing each other. But I think that they are so reliant on other teams either losing or winning that I can't see them, even if they do go 10-2, I can't see them getting into the playoffs without maybe Oklahoma or Texas potentially dropping to 9-3. So
It's
for
almost
me,
like it's almost like they're a 16 parlay sort of thing on a bet.
yeah, to me
Yeah,
they are just of those teams, of between Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, and Oklahoma, and then Vanderbilt are always going to be, I think, if Oklahoma win out, if Texas win out, and Alabama win all but one, and Georgia win all but one, you've then got a 4-10-2 teams, and then a Texas A&M who will be 11-1. And I think that Vanderbilt will struggle to get above those teams because for me, the two teams that they're relying on losing games is Texas and Oklahoma in order to be able to get into the playoffs. And if it if they don't and Texas and Oklahoma win out, I think they'll get forgotten about, and that their 10-2 will be seen as lesser because of the fact that Texas will have beaten two of the potential other playoff teams, and Oklahoma will have also beaten a playoff team. So for me, I think they are relying on Texas and Oklahoma losing for them to essentially leapfrog them if they were to then win out.
Yeah.
So that was my way of seeing it as a miracle, is that they're relying on others to win, not to have the control of their playoff potential in their own hands.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I get it. And that's again, that's where I think looking at placing a Tennessee, like you desperately need so many other teams to lose.
Mm.
They're the 23rd. Like you need to win out and hope that Michigan, USC, Vanderbilt, Texas, Oklahoma, like anyone up to basically nine. Um, I want to
Because
throw one more.
realistically, are we going to see five SEC teams in the playoffs?
I think
Do we
realistically you
think?
could do.
Because if it plays out where you've got 1-11-1, and then potentially 5-10-2s. I mean, there's six teams there that are all from the SEC that could make an argument to say that they should be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's one place goes to, four of them are already going or will go to um, conference winners. The fifth one will go to the group of five. So
Yeah.
that essentially leaves them down to 7 spots. Can five of them be filled by SEC teams? I'm not too sure. but that's a
This
world
goes
we could
back.
be in.
This goes back to how crazy and how stupid the rankings are.
Hmm.
Well,
Because there are two issues with the rankings this week that are really, really getting on my goat. And
are we
I'm
talking AP or college football playoff
well, I'm
ranking?
staring at the college football ranking, the playoff rankings right now,
Right.
and that's what's
So,
really getting my goat.
well, this is where we're going to get to now. So, with those locks, the hunters, and the miracle needers, who is in the question right now? Now, I haven't got the full. I've obviously got the full 25 in front of me, but up on screen now, if you are on YouTube, is the college football 2025 projected 12-team bracket for if the season were to end today. Quick mention to the teams in. So we're looking at the first round. You would have South Florida at Georgia, with whoever wins playing Alabama. Notre Dame, Oregon. Whoever wins plays Ohio State. Miami, Texas Tech. Whoever wins plays Texas A&M, and Texas Ole Miss. Whoever wins plays Indiana. The first team missing out of all those with all those teams in question is Oklahoma. And then the second team out now is BYU after their loss to Texas Tech this week. Nick, what is the problem that you have?
Right. Okay. So let's start with the ACC. You have Miami in with a win record of 7-2 and a conference record of 3-2 over Georgia Tech, who are 8-1 and a 5-1 in their conference. I'm sorry, that is not one game. That is not, well, they're both close and we might have to give it to the slightly bigger team. That is Georgia Tech have gone and smashed everybody in front of them, with the exception of NC State, and Miami have had a complete and utter disaster after about however many games in it was, 4 or 5 games. That's one thing that really I don't understand, how you can be top of your conference by a mile compared to the team that's made it in, and you're nowhere to be seen. They are not even on the first to miss out list. No, they're not even on that one either. So that's the first thing that's really bugging me. The second thing is, and I move to the Big 12. Right, okay. So we have Texas Tech clear as day, 9-1, 6-1 in the conference, fine. BYU 8-1, 5-1 in the conference, fine, not an issue. Cincinnati, who are down in 25, are 7-2 and 5-1 in their conference. Yet Utah, who are near enough over 10 places above them, yes, they're also 7-2, but they're only 4-2 in the conference. And there's a team between them, Houston Cougars, who are 8-2 and 5-2 in the conference, who aren't even in the conversation. Now, Utah beat, or no, Utah lost to BYU and they lost to Texas Tech. But they beat Cincinnati, but that seems to be the only reason why they are higher than Cincinnati, is because they beat them. And I don't mind making that the tie break if that applies. But it doesn't even apply, because the Houston are between Utah and Cincinnati, and it's just, oh god, it infuriates me that there is no construct proper system as to why people are rated when they're how they are and why they are, and yeah, oh, I don't get it, Sam. I just don't get it. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean,
Those
my
two, those two examples. Can you explain those two to me?
the only thing I can think of with, like you say, with the um with the Big 12 is the fact that Utah have that win over Cincinnati. That's the only reason I could think they would be above them. But at the same time, to be 10 places above them is a bit ridiculous
But then
because it's
my argument to that is why isn't Houston? Why aren't Houston above? Um, why where are Houston? They're nowhere to be seen, and they're between Cincinnati and Utah are lower in the conference and have Houston between them and Cincinnati. Yet Utah are higher in. I don't mind a head to
I,
head
I would I
on
would
the
probably I would probably say the reason for that is the fact that that Houston's loss, obviously, yes, was to Texas Tech with one of them. The other one was to West Virginia Mountaineers, who were 4-6, and they lost 45-35 to them. That
yeah.
can be the only reasoning I can give for that. I don't agree with it because at the end of the day, I mean, we've had this conversation multiple times on here because they you can only beat what's in front of you, and I get that they've still got to bring in the whole strength of schedule, etc. But at the end of the day, they're 8-2. They've won 8 games, they've lost two. They've won 5 games in their conference, they've only lost two, one of which was to the team that are essentially going to probably be, yeah, like they are. They're sixth in the playoff rankings at the moment, or third. So
Yeah.
I can understand that. The thing that I don't understand, and this is against my own team, Texas, we didn't play a game when we've got in the playoffs. To me,
Yeah. I
that
mean,
is baffling because
is
yes, I get BYU lost their game, but they're still 8-1.
yeah.
And to me, I don't get how we can jump into a playoff, not into the playoff picture, not winning a game, or not even playing a game, sorry, and BYU, just because they lose to another ranked team, drop out of the playoffs, even though their record's better than ours. To me, that doesn't make sense. The other one that I don't get, and I get it, but I don't agree with it, is the team that has been picked as the group of five team is South Florida, who are 7-2. North Texas are 8-1, 4-1 in the conference. South Florida are 4-1, 7-2 in overall. And they've chosen South Florida over North Texas. Now, the only thing I can think is the fact that South Florida actually dicked on North Texas. And that's the only reason I can think of as to why they've gone with South Florida over
And
North Texas.
and
But for me,
USF have wins over teams that are ranked.
yeah, well, one.
Yeah.
They only have one win over
Uh,
a ranked team.
But that's it. That's where we weigh in. And I'm just going to make the argument that there's a quality win there. There's a high quality win there. Um,
But
the
then North Texas have just beaten Navy, like who who were 7-1. That's a high quality win in my opinion. Now I know they weren't necessarily ranked, but that to me is a high quality win. You've taken a team who were 7-1 in the conference. No, sorry, 7-1 overall, and were 5-0 in their own conference, and you've gone on to then beat them.
I agree, Sam. Beating Navy is a high quality win and should be treated that way. I fully agree with you.
So to me, I personally think North Texas should be there over South Florida. Although I get it, I just think that North Texas have an extra win over them.
and
So to me,
just before I think I in fact I'm going to disagree because not only have they did it just before Veterans Day or Remembrance Day wherever you're watching from because we also celebrate it. I think that's just disgusting behaviour to be honest. Um, See, Nick, I won't just call out Notre Dame for it. The entire top 25, I will try and fly through them as they put them were Cincinnati new, USF who are new, The Tennessee Volunteers up 2, Pittsburgh Panthers up 1, Iowa Hawkeyes -1, Louisville Cardinals down 5, Virginia Cavaliers down 5, Michigan Wolverines +3. We didn't play either, Sam. I'm not complaining.
You should not be moving up spots if you don't play, unless the teams above you have had horrendous losses.
USC +2, Georgia Tech +1, Miami +3, Vanderbilt +2, Utah stay at 13, ever so consistent. BYU -5, Oklahoma +1, Texas +1, Notre Dame +1, Oregon +1, Ole Miss -1, Texas Tech +2. And then the top 5 are unchanged: Georgia, Alabama, Texas A&M, Indiana, and Ohio State unchanged.
How did Georgia Tech go up a place and lose a game?
They consider the other
This
loss
is
to be
what
worse.
this is what really frustrates me about the rankings. It's like they've been they've they've ended up with a positive ranking, but lost to North Carolina State, who were 4-4 at the time.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it just doesn't make sense. But
I'm glad
I
I'm not
suppose
the
it's
only one that does
yeah.
that
I
gets
think
frustrated.
So right. So Joe, finish your point there, Sam, and then we'll move on.
it was all it was it just the rankings to me don't make it. I can understand you've got to take in strength of schedule and you've got to look at who have they beaten, who have they lost, and it's not just a simple case of they're 8-1, so they should be higher. But I do think there needs to be some sort of sense brought into it that if you've won more games than someone else, that means more to me. It doesn't matter, these schedules are organized 2-3 years down the line. We don't know how these teams are going to be until we actually get into it. So to then almost devalue someone's win just because it's maybe against someone who's losing at the time, it just seems a bit odd to me. But I think that's probably because we come from, with our football, where it's a case of doesn't matter who you play, win is a win. And I think that's more of a British attitude towards it.
But then also imagine we enter the sport of American football through the NFL, who have a mathematical, you cannot argue with
Yeah.
this. You can dislike it, but you cannot argue with it. It is what it is, end of story, because it's
Yeah.
mathematical.
All the playoffs their playoffs are so, and we've learned from this is the AP polls and the college football playoffs. Yes, there are metrics and things that they do use, but it is all based off opinions and views and semi biases to a certain degree, maybe unconscious biases. So there is a little bit more of the humanized element within those picks, which I get, but it's still, for me, is frustrating.
Moving on to this week's games on the Zone. Again, so far these are all completely free to watch. If you have a DAZN account, tonight we are expecting, by the way.
That's last week's.
Yep, it is. 1 second.
I don't mind playing Navy again, but I know that we're not on Sky playing Navy. That's all.
That was
last week.
I copied and pasted over the wrong one. Hang on 1 second. Let me just get the right one. Oh, shit. I'll just copy and paste over the right one.
If the rankings bother you as much as they bother me, Sam, you should join me in the summer when we're gonna rip apart the system and come up with our own one.
I like that. I like coming up with our own ideas.
Okay.
We're good when we're put on our own, aren't we? We come up, the Appalachian State episode, still one of the great ones.
So we are expecting more games to be added to the slate. None have been confirmed, though there will be apparently games added to it. It does look a little better in comparison to other weeks. As you will have, if you're on YouTube, you will have just seen the week 11 schedule. Tonight, bit late for anyone listening, Toledo at Miami, Ohio. Now, it's hilarious because I've got DAZN right in front of me. They've put the wrong logo in for Miami, Ohio, because they've put in Miami, Florida.
Go
Now,
Toledo.
then on Friday night at 10:30 in the evening, we have some FCS football, which I always just appreciate being added into our schedules. South Carolina State at North Carolina Central. Then at half past 12, Clemson at Louisville, and at 2 in the morning, Minnesota at Oregon. On Saturday, we have college game day at 2 o'clock, which just is such a joy to watch. 5 o'clock, we have Arizona at Cincinnati, Wisconsin at Indiana, Michigan at Northwestern. At 8 p.m., Colorado State at New Mexico is on the Mountain West app. You can get it on your phone. Maryland at Illinois is at 8:30 alongside Iowa at USC, Penn State at Michigan State, UCF at Texas Tech, and Oklahoma at Alabama at midnight, Purdue at Washington, Florida at Ole Miss, half past, Texas at Georgia, and at 3:15 in the morning, TCU versus BYU.
Does this
So,
mean we're going to potentially have
potentially. I already know where you're going
potentially
at this.
potentially have Chapman on next week?
Potentially. We'll see how Saturday goes first.
Okay.
Remember, Sam watches Texas, Chapman watches college football.
Yeah.
Couple of games I've noted down this week in the American Conference. Memphis at Eastern Carolina. Memphis are 4-2 in the American. East Carolina 4-1. Now, Memphis might be slightly not completely, but pretty much out of the race for the American Conference, but it does have implications for the championship game, which may end up being playoffs. The ACC, Notre Dame at Pitt. It doesn't have a name, but 72 meetings all time since 1909, a long-standing rivalry between the two. Virginia at Duke,
that
75 times. What's up, sir?
that game, Fletch, Pitt and Notre Dame. That is what I know. We spoke for about a similar game last week, but that's a win and you're it. That's winning you're still in, losing you're out
Yeah,
because Pitt won't be able to come anywhere near the top of the ACC if they don't win that game. And as I said, if Notre Dame don't win it with the two losses they've already got, they've got to win out. So that game is a win and you're still in, out, lose and you are done.
yeah. Um, Virginia and Duke at Duke, 75 games of all time since 1890. UVA are 5-1 in the ACC. Duke are 4-1. Potential ACC championship game implications. UNC at Wake Forest. They have had 111 meetings all time. UNC are 75, 36, and 2. Bill Belichick's UNC will be 75, 37, and 2, probably going after this game. No massive games in the Big 12 this week. Couple in the Big 10. Michigan at Northwestern. It's for the George Jewett Trophy. Always good to see. Michigan State at Penn State is known as the Battle for the Land Grant. Also known this year as Battle for the first win in the Big 10. Iowa at USC, that has huge playoff connotations. Conference USA, we have Middle Tennessee at Western Kentucky. The game nicknamed 100 Miles of Hate. Any rivalry game that has the word hate in it, you know it's a good rivalry. You gotta be watching it. And Kennesaw State and Jacksonville State both play this weekend as well. The two undefeated teams in Conference USA. Win and you are almost guaranteed the Conference USA Championship game, potentially a preview of the Conference USA Championship game in the MAC. Ohio, Western Michigan was last night, and Buffalo Central Michigan was last night, is tonight even. Toledo at Miami, all of which are featuring teams towards the top end of the MAC. Very competitive conference. Mountain West, Boise State at San Diego State, both teams top of the Mountain West, both 4-1. Huge implications. Last couple, no massive games in the Pac-12. The SEC, Oklahoma and Bama, huge playoff implications. And finally, Texas and Georgia, playoff implications and a rematch of the 2024 SEC Championship game. Thankfully, this game is not in Texas. No one will be throwing bottles on the field when decisions
Hmm.
don't go their way,
Well,
Sam.
we don't know. It depends if the decisions go against Georgia. They might start throwing shit on the pitch. You never know.
Well, you never know. But those are my games. Like I said, I'll try and come up with a list of games that
The
features
only
huge
the only one you
rivalries.
the only one you didn't mention, and it's more that it has playoff. I mean, you might mention, but I didn't hear you mention it. That has playoff implications. Is South Florida against Navy?
Actually, I didn't mention
That
that.
that has huge, because I think if Navy go on to win that game, I could see them being they could potentially be the team that takes that group of five spot.
Yeah,
So, or it could solidify South Florida's claim on that spot.
absolutely. Right. Anyway, so that's enough of my waffling. Sam, who will be looking at this week?
Who am I watching this week?
Who will be
There's
what?
only
Obviously, we
I only watch one team, so I'll be watching one game, but it's on at midnight, so I don't think I'll be watching it. Um,
Not even watching it when he's supposed to be watching it.
it's
Sam
too late. I'll be in
only
bed at that
watches
point.
Texas when it is on
He's
at
going to
a
watch Texas
reasonable
Tech
time.
at 8:30. He's going to watch Texas Tech at 8:30 and then go to bed when Texas come on.
Well, I'll probably watch South Carolina against Texas A&M. Has to be a Texas team, so that'll
I
be
was
my,
going to
my
say,
5 o'clock game.
is that the thing? It has Texas in the name. It's
Has
good
to be
stuff.
Texas. Yeah, it can't be anything else. I don't. I am basically a cowboy, so all I do is watch, not the Dallas Cowboys. Let's get that dirty thing out of anyone's mouth. It is only Texas teams, the teams that have the term Texas in it.
What I
Um,
put in my mouth is none of
so
your business, Sam.
so yeah, Texas A&M will be my 5 o'clock game, just because why not? And then yeah, North Texas will be my 7 o'clock game. No, I don't know. I'm going to be quite busy on Saturday, so I don't know what type of games I'm going to get to watch. But I think I'll just be keeping an eye on the games. The like I say, the Alabama game I'll be keeping an eye on with Oklahoma, because I hope that they get smashed. And obviously, then we'll be watching first thing on the morning. We'll be watching the Texas Georgia game when I wake up. So yeah, they're my
I
watches.
quite fancy. I'll watch Notre Dame and Pitt at 5 o'clock. Um, I do fancy Iowa versus USC at 8:30. To be honest,
That's
I
going to be a
think
good game.
that could be a good game. Um, and I don't know whether I'll be up that late, but if I can make it, I might watch Texas versus Georgia. You know, I haven't got any skin in that game, so I can quite happily fall asleep and not worry about it.
I,
If
I think whether you're awake for that game will depend on how well the Notre Dame game goes.
if
How sober I am at that game is that will depend on how
and
well the
if,
note.
if if
How
Notre
well?
Dame lose that game, you're off to bed at like 9 o'clock. You're not bothering with anything else.
No,
and when I am inevitably awake at the time, I will watch TCU at BYU at 3:15 in the morning. So there's that. Nick, any who are you? Well, so any draft prospects we need to keep an eye out for this week?
no. I mean, I haven't really started a big. I haven't done a big draft thing yet. I haven't really properly started. It's until we get to that sort of 2 week period at Christmas where I finish work and I've got nothing to do. I don't really have the time to watch them. I mean, Sam spoke to me on chat this week about corners, and I said, we had the discussion about the Rams and the Patriots, and the fact that they were, I think they're probably both chasing a cornerback at some point. I can't even remember who I had on my list, so I'm just going back to the conversation now. But yeah, I mean, really, it's unfair for me to start throwing out names because I haven't really done
Okay.
the the hard graph yet. But you know, when me and Sam chatted on the chat, it was McCoy, Terrell, Delaney, and Cisse that were the cornerbacks that we talked about. But yeah, I think over the next few weeks, as
Yeah, yeah.
teams start to dwindle away, because the other thing is you still don't know who's declaring for the draft. There's no point in putting hours and hours in watching juniors for them to turn around and say, "No, I'm going to go to the draft in a year. I'm not coming," because there's just no. So really, at the moment, it's just I'm enjoying it, but I haven't really started to put any hard graft in yet.
Okay.
But I'll probably start with the defense to be honest.
As Gary's not here, I will do it. We're on London watch. So the two London opponents, Kansas, they last week lost to Arizona 24-20. They are on a bye week this week, so we don't need to worry too much what they're doing. Last week we had a battle of Wembley, well, London 2026 versus Dublin 2025, Iowa State versus Arizona State. Arizona State walked away 24-19 winners, and they play West Virginia this week in the Big 12. Not really playing for a lot, I think, more than anything. Arizona State already have a bowl game locked up, really out of playoff contention, real kind of pretty much out of contention for anything to do with the Big 12 championship. Kansas, however, are one game away from being bowl eligible. So when they come back, they've got Iowa State next. So I'd be keeping an eye out on them next week for bowl eligibility because it'd be nice to have two bowl teams as well coming over. Um, I think at least have teams with at least some sort of a winning record. Right, well, I think that's it, gentlemen. I will see you next week where we will be on week 12.5. We'll have the third iteration of the college football playoff bracket. There'll be a lot more to talk about, a lot more that's happened. So until then, have a great weekend.